How's it going, everyone? Patrick from the Diabetes Management Group here, and I want to share my thoughts and opinions about supplements and how they impact people's lives when they have type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. Now, for full disclosure, from my personal perspective, supplements is based off the names. It's supplementing whatever one is currently doing or whatever they have maximized. My current opinion is if someone has type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, the major emphasis should be placed on maximizing what they can do for the basics. That means improving their sleep quality to reduce the stress hormones, give their pancreas a break so that the insulin can become more sensitive, and giving their body a break so that it's more effective at utilizing the blood sugars so it can be lowered more effectively and improving the insulin sensitivity, increasing the amount of fiber and protein that one is taking each day so that they are able to slow down the digestion process of any carbohydrates that is coming in, whether it's from a sweet treat that they like and they want to pair it together, or if they want to eliminate it entirely from their diet and want to incorporate. Those are things that I would still recommend for folks to utilize. And I've seen that helpful in the clients that I worked with where they maximized those major things as well as going on a 15 to 20-minute walk after their meals or anytime that they drink a caloric beverage. They were able to lower their blood sugars effectively, lower their A1Cs effectively. One instance, one of my clients, they had an A1C of 10, and they were able to lower it to 5.3 in the span of about 4.5 months just by maximizing the basics that I worked with them with. And they were able to lose, I believe, about 40 pounds of fat mass during that time, building up their strength, and is able to do push-ups again and spending time with their family members, so much so that the benefits that he received by maximizing the basics to reverse his type 2 diabetes and keeping it reversed for about, I believe, 6 months now, that he's telling all of his friends about it so that they could check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and referring everybody to work with the diabetes management group so that they can figure out what plan works best for them. Now, I cannot guarantee the results that people will have amazing results when they focus on mastering the basics. However, if the basics are mastered, but they're still struggling with their A1C scores and managing their other healthy habits, in my perspective, that's when supplements can start coming into play. So supplements is more for coming into one's ability to manage their health after they've maximized what they're currently doing for the basics, or if they tried to do the basics, but it's not quite working for them and they need additional help to try and get that, because maybe getting protein sources or getting fiber sources is difficult depending on people's dietary preferences or their situations. So this is just my perspective on how to go about utilizing supplements so that one is more successful in managing and improving their health. Now, for a full disclaimer, and I'm going to be citing this from the Food and Drug Administration. For those who don't know, I like to have a thought of criticism when it comes to understanding and looking at supplements, because there are many people who could say, if you take this one supplement, it'll cure everything and you don't have to worry about it. When in reality, there is no cure for type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. It is very similar to weight loss. Like someone can take a magical pill and they say that the weight can be gone in the next day, but majority of the time, what happens? The weight's still there. And whenever they do partake in fitness activities or lifestyle changes to lose the weight, the instant that they stop doing the maintenance work, the weight starts coming back again. It's very similar to type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, where if someone's able to lower their A1C scores, but when they don't maintain the habits that got them there and improving their health and maintaining their awesome health, then the A1Cs can rise back up again and the complications can be worse because there's already permanent damage that does occur whenever someone does have a higher A1C score. And I've seen that time and time again during my time in my clinical rotations when someone comes in to the hospital where they're able to reverse their diabetes, but then they didn't maintain the proper habits because they weren't educated that type 2 diabetes can come back despite reversing it, that when they come back to the hospital, their complications are a lot worse due to not understanding that maintenance work is very much so required. And it's a lot easier to maintain rather than trying to get down into the appropriate levels for the A1C scores. So with that being said, about supplements, the Food and Drug Administration, they aren't exactly approving the stuff that's inside of the supplements. So someone can decide to create their own supplement company. They could put whatever they want in there and they could claim, oh, this magical supplement contains X, Y, and Z things. But since it's not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, the thing that they're selling could be completely false and not exactly in accordance of whatever they put inside of there. And then the claims that they do make, it may not even have the scientific research to even back up what they're claiming. So it could have a placebo effect where if you believe something will work and it actually has some effect on it, that's awesome if that works for you. Or it could have a nocebo effect where someone says if you take this supplement, it's going to be harmful and it actually ends up harming us. That's not a great time either. And there's also another effect too, where someone does take a supplement thinking that it's going to help them, but it actually doesn't do anything or it makes them worse. That's the issues that I'm concerned about. And I like to contain the thought of criticism towards it. If a placebo effect does work, great. However, make sure one has the appropriate blood work to actually back up that the placebo effect is working. Because if it's not actually working, for example, when I worked in my clinical rotations and someone is saying, oh, I'm in chronic pain, but whenever I use this ointment and this rub, all the pain goes away and I'm great for the next day. However, when I provide the rub and actually rub down their joint with their magic ointment that they have, the pain actually didn't necessarily go away. They weren't able to do the things that they wanted to do because if it actually did work and it did provide the placebo effect, why is it that it's not actually working to affect the muscles to improve its health, to actually reverse the pain that they have that's going on, and the maintenance work because of it? From my perspective, that's not a great time and it can be a money drainer if it's not actually working. Now, I may be controversial about it. People can hate me because of it, but that's my perspectives, that's my opinions, and I fell in that trap before. So I just want to share the things that I've been through and what I've experienced so that other people don't have to go through those frustrations when they're trying to improve their health. So with that being said, Food and Drug Administration, they consider supplements like a food, so people can effectively sell it as such. However, since the diet supplement companies, they're responsible for ensuring their products are safe and accurately labeled, that also means that they have full control of saying whatever they want to say or making such outrageous claims. So if something sounds way too good to be true, I'd always have that grain of salt in identifying it. And then if someone does say this supplement can cure X, Y, and Z things, asking the how behind it, that is going to be very effective for it. Because someone can say, oh, if you take this supplement, it's going to lower your blood sugars. Depending on what supplement it is, for example, if it's a fiber supplement where it can actually support slowing down the process of metabolizing the blood sugars and effectively improving someone's A1C scores, because fiber acts as like a plunger for the rest of our body to help clean things up. So it's more effective at improving our gut health, improving our blood sugar control and our A1C scores, then that's great. But if someone says, oh, if you take this magic supplement where it's filled with these crazy exotic ingredients or ingredients that you've never heard of before, and it's ancient medicine that's been passed down for so long, my question for that, whenever someone does say those things, is how come this ancient thing that they're utilizing still hasn't cured the issues that are going on? Like, why is it still a thing that for some people, based on the comments that I've read, that this supplement can cure herpes, when in reality, herpes, it's a permanent thing where once you do have herpes, it's either active or it's dormant. And when they say, oh, it can completely cure it, in order to completely cure it, you literally have to go into your nerves and do permanent changes for it. And it's not going to do that for the supplements that are out there based off the research that's out there. I wish it was. Unfortunately, it's just not there to back that up and follow through with it. And similar thing for some people who have experienced COVID-19, where they experience changes to their taste and their smell, where they no longer have the appropriate taste or smell despite having it. And they've tried all the other things for it and it doesn't work out, even the ancient stuff that people have utilized. That's because there's actually permanent damage that has occurred in the body or permanent changes that occurred from the virus or whatever disease that's out there that a supplement isn't going to be able to do because that's not how our bodies work. Instead, it's more about let's understand the reasoning of how things work and move on from there. So that being said, if someone is saying that this magic supplement can cure everything that someone has, cancer, all those things, asking the reason how it's able to do that's going to be effective. Generally, whenever someone says, oh, this is ancient medicine that's been passed down for so long, I take that with a grain of salt, and I generally would like to look up the information that's on there, because if they say it's doing something, but then I look it up and it's actually not as helpful, that's going to be a huge issue because that's not effective for allowing someone to improve their health. So that said, there's that huge disclaimer where if a dietary supplement company can say whatever they want on there, how do we know if what they're promoting or what is inside of their supplement actually contains what it is? That's where the thing where third-party testing can be beneficial, and one can Google, hey, is this supplement company third-party approved? Trying to figure out who the third-party testers are and moving along through there. That could determine if they're actually going through the right process and making it truthful to what they are promoting, or if it's a complete sham. And generally, if those supplements are ridiculously expensive and someone is demonizing other foods, artificial sweeteners, X, Y, and Z things, then itself, or if they say this is going to be holistic, natural, and way out there, I would have a spot of criticism for that and would like to do my own personal research to become more informed to see if it's actually truthful or if someone's trying to make a quick buck. So hopefully that's helpful for information wise. Just know supplements, it's not the best thing in my opinion, unless one is struggling and they need to try and supplement it with other items. For example, like the multivitamin, sometimes that can be helpful if one isn't able to eat enough vegetables to get the minerals that they need to improve their health. And another thing too, it's to understanding that whatever supplement form that someone has, technically that's even more ultra processed compared to whatever processed foods that are out there. So if someone decides to go to McDonald's to grab a burger from there, then versus some person who's trying to promote their natural, organic, holistic supplement, the difference between it is their natural holistic supplement has been churned to the point where it's in speckles and particles, whereas at least the McDonald's burger has some form of a shape of a solid liquid like format and consistency, where the supplement is even more processed and more fine graded compared to a McDonald's burger. So just knowing that whatever supplements that people have talked about, that's going to be considered one of the most processed forms of whatever original thing it used to be, versus what people demonize the other processed foods that are out there for fast food burgers or other things that are out there. Like they're both ultra processed and highly processed. Or whenever someone decides to put a bunch of dark green leafy vegetables and then some fruits and other things inside of a blender and blend that up to make a smoothie or a shake or those things, that is considered even more processed because we changed its original shape compared to what its original shape was. And that's just the unfortunate truth about supplements that people don't want to tell you, or shakes or smoothies. So from my perspective, I don't really care if something is as ultra processed or not, because once we chew the food, that's already going to become ultra processed. And when we swallow it, the matter of fact is if something is not as processed, so it's more of the whole food version of it, and we decide to eat like a whole chicken breast versus ground chicken, that whole chicken breast is going to take a little bit longer to digest compared to the ground chicken because it went through less processing. So when we do eat it and swallow it, that's actually going to satiate us a lot more compared to the other one that's already been more processed. So it will go down easier and digest a lot quicker compared to eating the whole food version of it and influencing how full we feel based off of that. So there's just that other information there for supplements. And then, of course, understanding the benefits and risks for them. And then some supplement companies may go through the FDA approval to actually ensure that they are compliant with it. And if they are good with it, then that's great. And if they're not, again, grain of salt, just figure out how you can educate yourself so that you can trust some reliable information and sources. So with that being said, from my perspective with supplements, I think it's a good thing to incorporate after one has mastered the basics or did their best to do majority of the basics correctly, to then start utilizing supplements. And for fair warning, like I use supplements myself, especially for multivitamins and other things based off of my blood work, despite improving the basics that I do have, that I still had some deficiencies in some other areas because I'm still not able to get certain foods due to my current location for food accessibility. That's why I decided to partake in having other supplements to maximize what I currently have for like my body and my health. And if I were to recommend any supplements for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes to have, I would highly recommend a fiber supplement because that's going to go a lot longer of a way compared to the other supplements that are out there. Because based off the research for cinnamon, we can even check that out here. So cinnamon and type 2 diabetes PubMed, because that's a scientific research. So we can see in this study, let's look at the design. So it is a meta-analysis, which is a pretty good one. They looked at 16 randomized controlled studies. So randomized controlled trials with a meta-analysis is the gold standard for research articles. Then the next one is randomized controlled trials. Then everything goes down the line. Anything that's like expert opinion or a narrative review, that's like the lowest form. That's basically a someone's other opinion. So take that with a grain of salt if people may, but know that if there are two articles that are out there where one is saying, oh, this is a randomized controlled trial of seeing how cinnamon affects type 2 diabetes and blood sugar control versus someone's expert opinion. If someone's expert opinion is, oh, cinnamon is a great way to improve insulin sensitivity and decreasing glucose. However, this randomized controlled trial says that's actually not the case and that's false. Then agreeing with what the randomized controlled trial said is significantly better from my personal perspective because they have more people who's involved with that. They blinded it so that they can reduce the amount of placebo effect that's going on or nocebo effect that's going on to actually look at what the data says versus whatever someone is making some assumptions on for other things. So that's just my personal perspective of how I would go about judging the information that's out there. And if we were to look at this study over here, 16 randomized controlled studies, which is good with meta-analysis, that's pretty good too. Cinnamon significantly reduced fasting blood glucose and homeostatic assessment for insulin resistance. So it's helpful in reducing fasted blood glucose and for insulin resistance compared to a placebo. However, there's no significant changes in A1C scores and lipid profiles when supplementing with cinnamon. So yes, cinnamon can improve a blood sugar control and insulin like sensitivity. However, other markers such as A1C scores and lipid profiles, it's not as effective on there. So just be in mind that cinnamon may not be as effective in impacting A1C scores compared to what people are claiming. So that essentially debunks what people said, where if you take cinnamon, that's going to cure type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. When in reality, what it shows over here, based off multiple research studies that of higher quality and getting rid of the placebo effect, that it's not actually as effective as people think. So there's that on there for highlighting those terms. If you wanted to take a look at it, you could look at this title, Efficacy and Safety of Cinnamon in Type 2 Diabetes and Prediabetes, and the citation for there. So for those folks who aren't quite sure what homeostatic model assessment means for that, it's basically how the body is able to stabilize the changes after intaking cinnamon is. So it's saying what are the adaptations that we have after eating cinnamon for our insulin resistance and other factors. So anyways, I hope everyone has found this information that's helpful. From my perspective, for supplements, do what you want with it. I highly recommend researching it, but from my perspective, the basics will go a longer way. And if someone is having a hard time trying to get enough protein and fiber in, then I do recommend looking into supplements for that so that they could attain the goal to reach it. There was an article from the American Diabetes Association. Let me see if I could find that, where they were looking at fiber supplementation, and they found that it was helpful. I could link that right over here. Viscous fiber supplements for people with type 2 diabetes. Looking at this systematic review, meta-analysis of randomized control trials. That's a pretty high quality evidence right there. If you want the information, you could always check that out with this link over here and type it out. And then, of course, we could always go through the full control and the review of certain things to understand the nuances, because sometimes some person could come out with a research study and it's an observational one. So they're just looking at trends and associations, but they don't understand more the nuances of, oh, for example, one of the studies that's out there that people talk about of artificial sweeteners being bad, it's basically saying, oh, people who have type 2 diabetes and who are obese or have more of a higher weight is taking artificial sweeteners, whereas compared to those who aren't having that, they aren't taking the artificial sweeteners. In reality, if we think about it, what's the reason why someone who it may be overweight and having type 2 diabetes is taking the artificial sweeteners? It's because it's a no nutritional value, so not that much sugar or hardly any sugar at all. So it's not going to really impact the blood sugar levels versus people who are healthier and have other habits that are taking the other drinks that have higher contents of sugars, that it's a no-brainer of why people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes are having more intake of the artificial sweeteners is because they actually have a condition where they're trying to address and manage. So that's why they're intaking more of that compared to the healthier controls where they can decide what they want and it won't really matter for it. So they're not as conscious about it. So it's the nuances that are out there with research and things. And a person who does a good job for highlighting those research articles and understanding those nuances, because I'm not as great of a synthesizer of the research articles like BioLane or Dr. Lane Norton and Dr. Itz. Those are two influential figures and nutritional researcher and a medical doctor who is versed in lifestyle management. They do a great job in dissecting the research and debunking the false claims that are out there so that people can make a more educated decision about what habits they can do to improve their health. So, with that being said, with this one over here, they talked about it. 28 trials. They found that by taking about 13.1 grams a day, it significantly reduced their A1C scores, fasted blood glucose, their insulin resistance compared to the control group for the regular standard of care for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. So it just goes to show that supplementing does help. And another research article, let me see if I could find this. New England Journal of Medicine. Here's the article reference in the source. So it's talking about high fiber intake for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. The general things that I recommend for my paid clients and what I try to follow for myself is trying to have about 45 grams to 55 grams of fiber each day and making sure that I pair the fibers with the meals that I eat. In this study, randomized controlled trial, it talks about how they compared having moderate amounts of fiber, so 24 grams versus high fiber, where it's a total of 50 grams, they found that the higher intakes of fiber, particularly those that are soluble, above the levels recommended by the ADA, does improve glycemic control, decreases the insulin resistance. Another term for it could be hyperinsulinemia, and then lowering the blood lipids, or another term for it, it's the fat that's inside of our bloods for people with type 2 diabetes. So it shows that having the significantly higher amounts of fiber has way more beneficial effects for it. So from my perspective, if someone wants to go to a Walmart and they want to take a fiber supplement, just getting the ones off the shelf can be beneficial that way. Or if they want to do more of their own research to see which ones could be more beneficial for them, go ahead for that. I know for some other research articles, it talked about how psyllium husk is a really good fiber supplement for people who may have type 2 diabetes and IBS, so irritable bowel syndrome. So that's something to look into, considering that someone may not be able to tolerate eating beans or legumes or other forms of food that way. So anyways, I hope people have found that helpful, and just know that with supplementations, be wary of people who claim that the supplement can do every single thing and curing everything, because in reality, it's not exactly a cure for everything. So instead, it's more focused on, okay, what things is out there that is actually more reasonable and realistic? Can I understand the mechanisms behind it? And if there's things that people aren't quite sure about, I'm happy to look into it for y'all and then provide another video based off of that. So without further ado, thank you all so much for tuning into this video. I hope you've learned something, and please subscribe, click that notification bell for updates for future videos, share this video with a friend or family member or someone who would benefit from this. And then if you have any questions, of course, feel free to make some comments down below. And I'll see y'all next time for the next video.